The mountains had teeth. That's what Marcus's grandfather used to say, back when the world was smaller and dangers came with names you could speak aloud. But standing here, watching the granite peaks slice into a sky the color of old bruises, Marcus understood the truth of those words in a way that made his bones ache. The wagon wheel splintered with a crack that echoed across the valley like a gunshot. Damn it! He threw his hat into the dirt, the brim catching mud that would freeze solid by nightfall. His hands, those hands that had promised Sarah safety, that had built their cabin back in Missouri, that had held hers during their wedding, now shook with something that looked dangerously close to panic. Sarah climbed down from the wagon bench, her pregnant belly making every movement awkward and deliberate. 7 months along, and their child seemed determined to press against every organ she possessed. How bad is it? Marcus didn't answer immediately. He crouched beside the broken wheel, running his fingers over the splintered wood like a doctor examining a mortal wound. When he finally looked up, his eyes held an apology that made Sarah's chest tighten. We're not making it through the pass before the snow hits. The words hung between them, heavy as stones. They both knew what that meant. The Rockies didn't forgive stragglers. Every settler they'd passed on the trail had told the same stories. Families caught by early winter, found frozen in their wagons come spring, bodies preserved in ice like insects in amber. There's a trading post, Sarah said, pulling her shawl tighter against the wind that had started to bite. Maybe 5 miles back. We passed it yesterday morning. That place? Marcus stood wiping his hands on his trousers. Sarah, that wasn't a trading post. That was a collection of desperate men waiting for something worse to happen. And we're not desperate? The question silenced him. In the distance, an eagle screamed, or maybe it was the wind through the peaks. Marcus couldn't tell anymore. Everything up here sounded like dying. We go back, she said, not asking. We get the wheel fixed, we resupply, and we try again when there's a chance we won't die. Marcus looked at the mountains, then at her belly, then at the sky that promised snow. The calculation played across his face like cards being dealt. Finally, he nodded. We go back. The trading post squatted in the valley like something that had crawled there to die and changed its mind. Rough-hewn logs chinked with mud and moss, a roof that sagged in the middle, and smoke dribbling from a stone chimney that looked ready to collapse. 3 other wagons clustered nearby, their canvas covers gray with road dust and desperation. As Marcus guided their crippled wagon into the clearing, he counted the men. 12 visible, maybe more inside. Hard faces weathered by wind and worse. Eyes that tracked their arrival with the kind of interest that made him want to check that his rifle was loaded. Stay close, he murmured to Sarah as he set the brake. Don't talk to anyone unless I'm there. I'm not a child, Marcus. I know. His jaw tightened. That's what worries me. The trading post door banged open before they could dismount. A man emerged, tall, barrel-chested, with a beard that might have been black once but had gone iron gray with age or stress. He wore a leather vest over a stained shirt, and a pistol rode his hip with the casual comfort of long acquaintance. Well, well, his voice carried across the clearing like gravel sliding down a slope. More pilgrims seeking salvation, or at least shelter. He spat tobacco juice into the mud. Name's Pike. I run this establishment such as it is. Marcus climbed down, then reached up to help Sarah. She accepted his hand but kept her other one on the wagon rail, maintaining her own balance. Pike's eyes followed the movement, noting her condition with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. Marcus Boone, he said, extending his hand. This is my wife, Sarah. We've had some trouble with our wagon. Need repairs and supplies before we can push through the pass. Pike's handshake was brief, businesslike. Pass is closing. Snow's coming early this year. Old-timers say it'll be a hard winter. Old-timers always say that, Marcus replied, trying for levity. Old-timers are usually dead by now if they're wrong. Pike's smile didn't reach his eyes. But your money's good here, same as anyone's. You got money, don't you, Boone? Enough. Everyone says that. Pike turned toward the post. Come on, let's see what you need. Fair warning, though. Prices up here aren't what they were back in civilization. Supply and demand, you understand? And up here, I'm the only supply for 100 miles. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Sarah touched his arm, a gentle pressure that said, don't. They needed this place, needed this man's goods and skills, and pride was a luxury they couldn't afford. Inside, the trading post smelled of smoke, sweat, and something else, something feral that Marcus couldn't quite name. Pelts hung from the rafters, beaver, fox, even what looked like a wolf. A rough bar dominated one wall, bottles glinting in the light from the fire. Men sat at makeshift tables playing cards with the grim intensity of people betting more than money. A woman stood behind the bar, the first woman Sarah had seen since they'd left the last settlement 3 weeks ago. She was younger than expected, maybe 25, with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that had seen too much. When their gazes met, the woman's expression shifted. Not quite a smile, but an acknowledgement. "Rebecca," Pike called. "Bring whiskey. Our new guests look like they need warming." "Just water for my wife," Marcus said quickly. "The baby—" Course. Pike waved a hand dismissively. "Rebecca, water for the lady. Boone, you look like you could use something stronger." They settled at a table near the fire. Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on his back. Conversations had died when they entered, replaced by the kind of silence that weighed. Pike leaned back in his chair, studying them. "So, wheels broken, you need supplies, and winter's breathing down your neck. That about sum it up?" "That's the situation," Marcus agreed. "I can fix the wheel. Got a wheelwright camped here, fellow named Voss. He's drunk most days, but his hands are still steady when it counts. Cost you $10. "10?" Marcus's voice rose despite himself. "Back in Kansas, that'd be $2 work. Back in Kansas, you've got options. Here, you've got me." Pike spread his hands. "As for supplies, flour, salt, ammunition, whatever else you need, we can work out the details. But here's the thing, Boone. Money's one form of payment up here, but information's another, and sometimes information's worth more." Marcus felt the conversation shift like a river changing course. What kind of information? Pike's attention moved between them, calculation in his eyes. The kind of math that measured people's desperation against their usefulness. "The kind that keeps everyone alive," he said slowly. "You've come up from the lowlands. You've passed through settlements, seen other travelers. Maybe heard things, maybe saw things. Up here, we're isolated, cut off. News is valuable." "What kind of news are you interested in?" Marcus asked carefully. "Any kind," and Pike leaned forward. "But specifically, have you seen any military patrols, any government men asking questions, any unusual activity?" The way he said unusual made Marcus's skin prickle. He glanced at Sarah, saw his own wariness reflected in her face. "We've been traveling hard," Marcus said. "Kept to ourselves mostly. Didn't see much of anything except road and sky." It was a lie. They'd passed an army patrol 5 days back, headed north with grim purpose. They'd camped one night near a burned-out homestead, the bodies still fresh enough to draw flies. They'd heard rumors in the last settlement about raids, about tensions with the Cheyenne tribes, about violence spreading like cholera. But Marcus's instincts, the same instincts that had kept them alive this long, told him to keep those details close. Pike studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. "Fair enough. Can't blame a man for being cautious." He stood. "I'll have Voss look at your wheel in the morning. In the meantime, you can bed down in the back room. Cost you $2 for the night." $2 to sleep on a floor? $2 to sleep somewhere that isn't frozen ground with wolves circling. Pike's smile was sharp. "But if you prefer the outdoors, you're welcome to it." They paid. What choice did they have? The back room was exactly what Marcus expected. A space barely larger than a closet, with a dirt floor and walls that didn't quite meet the roof. Wind whistled through the gaps, but it was shelter, and right now, shelter was everything. Marcus spread their bedrolls while Sarah sat heavily on a crate, trying to find a position where her back didn't ache and the baby wasn't pressing on her lungs. Outside, he could hear the rumble of male voices, occasional laughter that sounded more cruel than amused. "This place feels wrong," she said quietly. Marcus paused in his work, then came to sit beside her. "I know. Those men out there, they're not just traders or travelers, they're—" She searched for the word. "They're waiting for something, like wolves at a kill, waiting for the bigger predator to leave so they can have their turn." "We'll be gone in 2 days," Marcus promised. 3 at most. Get the wheel fixed, resupply, and push through before the weather turns completely. "And if the pass is already closed?" He didn't answer. They both knew the alternative. Wintering here, trapped in this place with these men, Sarah 9 months pregnant and vulnerable. Sarah took his hand, pressed it against her belly. Feel that? That's your son, or daughter, kicking like they're ready to fight the world. Marcus's face softened. Strong, like their mother. I'm not strong, Marcus. I'm terrified. Same thing sometimes. A knock on the doorframe made them both jump. Rebecca stood there, holding a steaming bowl. Thought you might be hungry. It's just stew, but it's hot. Sarah stood, wincing at the protest from her back. Thank you, that's very kind. Rebecca entered, keeping her voice low. Listen, you seem like decent people, so I'm going to give you some advice. Don't trust Pike. Don't trust any of the men here. Keep your valuables close and your weapons closer. And when you leave, and you should leave as soon as you can, don't tell anyone which direction you're heading. What's going on here? Marcus asked, voice tense. Nothing good. Rebecca glanced back toward the main room. This post, it's not just a trading station. It's a waypoint for men running from something. Law, debt, conscience, doesn't matter. They wash up here like driftwood, and Pike gives them shelter in exchange for services. What kind of services? The kind that involve blood. Rebecca set the bowl down. There's a gang operates out of here. They call themselves the Mountain Brotherhood. Pike provides intelligence, supplies, and safe harbor. They provide protection and a cut of whatever they steal from travelers foolish enough to come through alone. Marcus's blood went cold. We came through alone. I know. Rebecca's expression was grim. That's why I'm warning you. There's been talk. Some of the men think you might have money hidden. That wagon of yours looks well provisioned, and a pregnant woman. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Marcus stood abruptly. We're leaving, tonight. Can't. Rebecca shook her head. Your wheel's broken, remember? You wouldn't make it a mile in the dark, and if they see you trying to run, they'll know you've got something worth taking. No, you need to wait until the wheel's fixed, play along, act grateful, then leave during daylight when it seems natural. And just trust that they won't slit our throats while we sleep? Sleep in shifts. Keep your rifle loaded. Stay in this room. Rebecca moved toward the door, then paused. And pray they get distracted by something else before they get around to you. She left before they could ask what that meant. Sarah sank back onto the crate, her hands shaking. Marcus? I know. He checked his rifle, his pistol, counting ammunition with practiced efficiency. I know. We made a mistake coming here. We made a mistake the day we left Missouri. His laugh was bitter. Thought we'd find a better life out west. Thought we'd claim some land, build a home, raise our family in peace. Instead, we're trapped in a thieves' den with winter closing in and a baby on the way. Don't, Sarah's voice was sharp. Don't do that. Don't spiral. We're alive, we're together, and we're going to stay that way. You hear me? He looked at her, really looked at her, and something in his face softened. How are you not terrified? I am terrified, but terror doesn't help. She stood, moved to the single small window that looked out onto the clearing. Full dark now, with stars emerging like ice chips in black water. We survived this by being smarter than them, by waiting for our moment, by not giving them a reason to see us as anything but harmless. You're 7 months pregnant, Sarah. They already see you as harmless. Good. Her reflection in the glass was ghostly, insubstantial. Let them underestimate us. People have been doing that our whole lives. It's kept us alive so far. They slept in shifts, as Rebecca suggested. Marcus took first watch, sitting by the door with his rifle across his knees. Sarah tried to rest, but her mind wouldn't quiet. Every sound from the main room made her flinch, laughter, breaking glass, a scream that might have been playful or might have been terror. Sometime past midnight, the sounds died down. Sarah woke to find Marcus still at his post, head nodding despite his best efforts. Let me take over, she whispered. Sarah. You're exhausted. I'll wake you if anything happens. He wanted to argue, she could see it in his face, but fatigue won. He handed her the rifle, showing her again how to chamber around, how to sight along the barrel, how to squeeze the trigger rather than pull. As if she hadn't already known. As if her father hadn't taught her to shoot rabbits when she was 10 years old. She settled by the door, the rifle heavy and cold in her hands. Outside, the wind had picked up, carrying with it the promise of snow. tomorrow, maybe. The next day at latest. They needed to be gone before then. Hours crept past. Sarah found herself thinking about the life they'd left behind, the cabin in Missouri, the land Marcus had inherited from his father, the simple existence they'd abandoned for dreams of something better. Had it been worth it? All this suffering, all this danger for the chance at more land, better soil, a bigger future? She touched her belly, felt the baby shift in sleep. Maybe it would be worth it if they survived. A sound made her tense, footsteps outside, slow and deliberate. She raised the rifle, finger on the trigger, breath held. The steps passed by, moved on toward the barn where the horses were kept. Sarah exhaled slowly, lowered the weapon. False alarm. Just someone checking the livestock. Normal. Nothing to fear. But the fear didn't leave. It coiled in her stomach like a snake, cold and patient. Morning came gray and bitter. Sarah woke Marcus at first light, both of them stiff and sore from a night of tension. Outside, the camp was stirring, men emerging from wherever they'd slept, stretching, pissing against trees, starting fires. Pike appeared at their door without knocking. "Voss is ready to look at your wheel. Bring it to the barn." They followed him across the clearing. In daylight, the trading post looked even more desperate than it had the night before. The other wagons were in worse shape than theirs, one missing its cover entirely, another with a wheel so warped it wouldn't turn. The families that belonged to them looked hollowed out, eyes empty of hope. Voss was waiting in the barn, a thin man with a drinker's nose and hands that trembled until they touched wood. Then they steadied, became sure. He examined their broken wheel with the focus of an artist studying a canvas. "Can be fixed," he said finally. "Need new spokes here and here. Hub's cracked, but salvageable. 2 days' work." 2 days? Marcus protested. "We don't have 2 days." "Then you don't have a wheel." Voss returned to his examination, dismissing them. Pike clapped Marcus on the shoulder. "Come on, let Voss work. We'll discuss terms." They returned to the main room where men were eating breakfast, salt pork and hardtack washed down with coffee that smelled more like tar than anything drinkable. Pike gestured them to sit. "So here's the situation," he began. 2 days' work on the wheel, plus materials, plus my commission for facilitating, let's call it $20 total. 20? Marcus's voice rose. "That's robbery. That's business." Pike's smile was cold. "But I'm a reasonable man. I'll offer you an alternative. There's a group coming through tomorrow. Riders. They're going to want information, and they're going to want it fast. You help me give them what they need, and we'll call your debt settled." Something in his tone made Marcus's skin crawl. "What kind of information?" "The kind that keeps people alive." Pike leaned back. "See, there's been some tension between the settlements and the local tribes. Cheyenne, mostly. They're not happy about all the wagons rolling through their hunting grounds. Been some incidents, attacks. The riders coming through tomorrow, they're headed to deal with that situation. But they need to know where the tribes are camped, what their numbers look like, what their intentions are." "How would we know that?" Marcus asked. "You wouldn't, but you'd help convince someone who does." Pike's gaze drifted toward the window. "We've got a Cheyenne scout locked in the root cellar. Caught him spying 3 days ago. He knows where his people are hiding. The riders. They need that information. You help extract it, your debt is forgiven." The words landed like blows. Marcus felt sick. "You want us to help you torture someone," Sarah said flatly from beside him. "I want you to help facilitate an exchange of information that will save lives." Pike's voice hardened. "Those tribes, they're planning something. An attack maybe, a raid. If we don't know where they are, they'll hit a settlement. Women and children will die. Is that what you want?" "I want no part of this." Marcus stood. "We'll pay your $20 in cash, but we're not helping you hurt anyone." Pike's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the room. The other men, the ones who'd seemed disinterested in their breakfast, suddenly weren't. Attention focused on them like light through a magnifying glass. "Sit down, Boone. We're leaving." "I said sit down." The pistol appeared in Pike's hand so fast Marcus barely saw the movement. One moment empty, the next filled with dark metal and darker intention. Marcus froze. Sarah felt her heart hammering against her ribs, felt the baby kick as if sensing the danger. "Now," Pike said conversationally, "let's try this again. You're going to help me with my problem, or you're going to have a much bigger problem. Understand? Marcus found his voice, though it came out rougher than he intended. If we help you, if we do what you want, you'll fix our wagon and let us leave? You have my word. His word. As if that meant anything in this place. But they had no choice. Marcus could see it reflected in Sarah's terrified face. The terrible calculation. Fight and die here, now, achieving nothing. Or compromise, survive, live to see tomorrow, and protect their unborn child. Show us, Marcus said quietly, the words tasting like ash. Pike smiled. Smart man. The root cellar was dug into the hillside behind the trading post, covered with a heavy wooden door that took 2 men to lift. The smell that emerged when they opened it was foul, human waste, fear, infection. After you, Pike said, gesturing with his pistol. They descended crude stairs into darkness. Someone handed down a lantern. In its flickering light, Marcus saw him. The Cheyenne scout was young, maybe 20, with long black hair matted with blood and skin that had gone gray with pain. They chained him to the far wall, hands above his head, legs barely supporting his weight. His eyes tracked them with animal wariness. He doesn't speak English, Pike said from behind them, or claims he doesn't. But pain is a universal language. I've been trying for 3 days to get him to talk. No luck. Stubborn bastard. Marcus felt bile rise in his throat. The man's chest was covered in burns, small, precise circles where someone had pressed hot metal against flesh. His left hand hung at a wrong angle, fingers swollen purple. You want us to torture him, Marcus said, his voice hollow. I want you to convince him that talking is better than the alternative. Pike moved past them, grabbed the man's chin, forced his head up. Your people are planning something. Where are they camped? How many warriors? When do they attack? The scout spat blood. Pike hit him. Casual, efficient, and the scout's head snapped back against stone. See? Stubborn. Pike turned to Marcus. You're a smart man, Boone. You understand strategy. Help me make him understand that silence helps no one. Marcus was trembling. Sarah could see it, the war in him, the decent man fighting against the desperate one. She knew what he was thinking. We can't do this. But if we don't, we die here. If we refuse, Pike kills us, takes our supplies, and we become just another story about fools who died on the frontier. There has to be another way, Marcus said, his voice breaking. There isn't. Pike's voice went flat. You either help or you join him on that wall. Your choice. And your wife. She can watch what happens when people refuse me. Time seemed to slow. Sarah watched her husband's face, saw the moment something broke inside him, saw the decision form that would haunt him forever. I'm sorry, Marcus whispered, to her, to the scout, to himself. I'm so sorry. He stepped forward. What happened next would haunt both of them for the rest of their lives. Marcus didn't have the stomach for true cruelty. Sarah could see that in how his hands shook, how he kept apologizing under his breath, how he turned away when Pike demonstrated what real persuasion looked like. But desperation made him complicit. He held tools when ordered, asked questions when commanded, became part of something he'd sworn never to be. The scout never broke, never spoke, just watched them with eyes that held more judgment than any sermon. Finally, Pike pulled Marcus back. Enough. He's useless to us. What does that mean? Sarah asked, though she already knew. Pike drew his knife. Means he's served his purpose. Can't let him go. He'd warn his people. Can't keep him. We're low on supplies, so... No. The word came from Sarah before she could stop it. No, you can't. Can't? Pike turned to her, eyebrows raised. Mrs. Boone, are you giving me orders in my own establishment? I'm asking you not to murder a helpless man. He's not a man. He's a savage, an enemy. And enemies don't get mercy, they get buried. Something in Sarah snapped. Maybe it was the pregnancy hormones. Maybe it was watching her husband's soul die piece by piece in this cellar. Maybe it was just that she'd reached her limit. She stepped between Pike and the scout. If you want to kill him, you'll have to go through me. The cellar went absolutely still. Even the scout seemed to hold his breath. Marcus stared at his wife like he'd never seen her before. Pike stared at her like she'd grown a second head. You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? Sarah, Marcus hissed. What are you doing? She didn't know. This was insane. This would get them both killed, but she couldn't watch another moment of this cruelty without making a stand. Mrs. Boone, Pike said slowly, step aside. No, I'm not going to ask again. Then don't ask. Just know that if you kill him, you'll have to kill me too. And my baby, and then my husband, because he'll never let that pass. So that's 3 murders instead of 1. Is that really worth it? Pike's jaw worked. She could see him calculating, weighing options. Behind him, the other men watched with the fascination of people witnessing something unprecedented. Finally, Pike lowered his knife. You're right, it's not worth it. He smiled, but it was a terrible thing. We'll let him go. Let him run back to his people and tell them all about the kind hospitality he received here. That'll really help smooth over tensions. He moved toward the stairs, then paused. But here's the thing, Mrs. Boone. You just made yourself responsible for whatever happens next. He goes back, tells his tribe about us. They attack. That's on you. Those deaths are yours to carry. I'll live with that. We'll see. Pike climbed the stairs. Voss, cut him down. Give him his horse. Let's see if mercy gets us anywhere. They cut the scout free. He collapsed immediately, unable to support his own weight. Marcus and another man half carried, half dragged him to the barn, where they threw him onto his horse and slapped the animal's rump. The horse bolted, carrying its barely conscious rider toward the tree line. Marcus stood watching from the trading post door, his arms wrapped around himself. He'd just participated in torture. He'd broken every moral code he'd ever believed in, and his wife had witnessed it all. That was either very brave or very stupid, Rebecca said quietly, appearing at his elbow. Probably both. Pike's not going to forget this. Neither are his men. Your wife embarrassed him in front of everyone. She couldn't watch us kill someone in cold blood. People die in cold blood every day out here. That's the frontier. That's reality. Rebecca sighed. But I understand. Sometimes you have to draw a line, even if it gets you killed. Marcus found Sarah in their room, sitting on the floor with her arms wrapped around her knees, rocking slightly. He knelt beside her, uncertain what to say. I'm sorry, he finally managed. I'm so sorry you had to see that. Had to see me. You did what you thought you had to do to protect us, Sarah said, though her voice was hollow. I understand that, but I couldn't. I just couldn't watch them murder him. Not after what we'd already done. You put us in impossible danger. Pike's going to make us pay for that humiliation. Then we leave, tonight. Wheel or no wheel. We won't make it 5 miles. We won't make it 5 minutes if we stay. She grabbed his arms. Marcus, listen to me. This place, it's poison. Everyone here is either a predator or prey, and I refuse to be either. We take our chances out there in the wild. At least there, the things trying to kill us are honest about it. He wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. Tonight, he agreed. After dark, we'll take what we can carry and go on foot if we have to. They spent the day preparing in secret, packing light, just food, water, weapons, blankets, enough to survive a few days in the wilderness. Maybe they'd find another settlement. Maybe they'd meet other travelers. Maybe a miracle would happen. Or maybe they'd freeze to death under the stars, but at least they'd die free. As evening fell, Marcus felt the first snowflakes touch his face. The storm Pike had predicted was arriving. They waited until the trading post was loud with drinking and gambling, when attention was elsewhere. Then they slipped out the back, moving toward the tree line where they'd hidden their packs. They almost made it. Going somewhere? Pike stepped from the shadows, flanked by 3 men, all armed. Just needed air, Marcus said weakly. With packs full of supplies? Don't insult my intelligence, Boone. Pike moved closer. I knew you'd try something. The righteous always do. They can't help themselves. Please, Sarah said. Just let us go. We won't tell anyone about this place. We'll disappear. Oh, I believe you'd try. But see, we can't have witnesses. Can't have people spreading stories about the Mountain Brotherhood's hospitality. His smile was terrible. No hard feelings. It's just business. The gunshot split the night. But it wasn't Pike's gun. It wasn't any of their guns. One of Pike's men dropped, a hole in his chest blossoming red. Then another shot, and another. Men fell. Pike dove for cover, shouting orders. From the darkness came riders, 10, 15, more. They moved like ghosts, silent except for the thunder of hooves and the crack of rifles. Outlaws. The mountain brotherhood Pike had mentioned, and they'd come for blood. Run! Marcus grabbed Sarah's hand, pulled her toward the woods. Behind them, the trading post erupted into chaos. Men screaming, guns firing, the smell of powder and panic. They ran. Sarah's pregnant belly made her slow, awkward. Branches tore at her dress. Snow fell harder now, obscuring vision. Behind them, the sounds of violence grew more intense. Then Marcus felt something punch him in the back, hard, burning. He stumbled, caught himself against a tree. No, Sarah breathed, catching him as his legs gave out. No, no, no! He'd been shot, high in the back, near his shoulder. Blood pumped between her fingers as she tried to staunch it. Keep going, he gasped. Don't stop. I'm not leaving you. Sarah. He grabbed her face with bloody hands. The baby. You have to survive for the baby. Promise me. Marcus, please. Promise. I promise. He kissed her, tasting of copper and salt. Then he pushed her away toward the darkness beyond. Go! She ran, blind with tears, pregnant and terrified and alone. Behind her, she heard Marcus shouting, drawing attention, buying her seconds with his life. Then a final shot. Then silence. Sarah ran until she couldn't breathe, until her legs gave out, until she collapsed in snow that was already beginning to accumulate. She lay there, hand over her mouth to muffle her sobs, feeling her baby kick against her palm. Alone, widowed, hunted. And somewhere in the darkness she heard footsteps approaching. Not the heavy boots of Pike's men, something lighter, more careful. She looked up through tears and falling snow to see a figure standing over her, tall, lean, dressed in deerskin with long black hair and copper skin marked with paint and scars. The Cheyenne scout they'd saved. His eyes met hers. In them, she saw no gratitude, no mercy, just calculation. He raised his tomahawk. And Sarah Boone, 7 months pregnant and covered in her dead husband's blood, did the only thing she could do. She looked him in the eye and waited for the blow to fall. The tomahawk didn't fall. Marcus stared up at the Cheyenne scout, snow catching in his eyelashes, his breath coming in ragged gasps that clouded the frozen air between them. His face was unreadable, carved from stone and shadow, marked with bruises where Pike's men had beaten him. The weapon trembled in his grip, not from weakness but from something else. Indecision, maybe. Or restraint harder won than any battle. Do it, Marcus whispered, surprising himself with the steadiness in his voice despite the agony radiating from his shoulder. I saved your life. Now take mine. That's fair, isn't it? That's justice. He lowered the tomahawk slowly, his dark eyes moving from Marcus's face to the blood pooling beneath him, then back again. When he spoke, his English was rough but clear. Pike had been wrong about that, like he'd been wrong about so many things. You are the man, from the cellar. Yes, your woman. She stopped them from killing me. Sarah. Marcus's voice cracked on her name. Where is she? Did you see? She ran into the forest. The white men chase her. The scout crouched beside Marcus, examining the wound with clinical efficiency. You die here if I leave you. Bullet went through, but you lose much blood. Then let me die. Just... Marcus grabbed the scout's arm with desperate strength. Find Sarah, keep her safe. The baby, she's carrying our child, please. The scout studied him with an intensity that made Marcus feel transparent. Around them, the forest had gone quiet except for the whisper of falling snow and distant gunfire from the trading post. Whatever was happening there, it was still happening, violence feeding on itself like fire on dry wood. You tortured me, the scout said flatly. You held the iron. You asked the questions. Why should I help your woman? Because she's the one who tried to save you. Because she stood between you and Pike's knife when I was too much of a coward to do it myself. Marcus coughed, tasted blood. Because she's innocent in all this. Whatever you think I deserve, she doesn't deserve to die out here. No one is innocent. We all make choices. But the scout was already moving, tearing strips from Marcus's shirt, packing the wound with practiced efficiency. I am Talon Gray. You will tell me your name before you die. Marcus. Marcus Boone. He gasped as Talon Gray pressed hard against the exit wound. I'm not going to die. I can't. Sarah needs me. Then you must fight harder than Bullet. Talon Gray helped him sit up, supporting his weight. Can you walk? I don't have much choice, do I? Something that might have been respect flickered across Talon Gray's face. No, you do not. They moved through the forest, Marcus leaning heavily on Talon Gray, each step a fresh lesson in agony. His shoulder screamed. His legs wanted to give out. The cold was already stealing feeling from his extremities, and he knew that was dangerous. The kind of dangerous that ended with frozen limbs, an amputation, if you survived at all. Why are you helping me? Marcus asked through gritted teeth after what felt like hours of stumbling through snow. You could have just left me there. Let the cold do what the bullet didn't. Talon Gray didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was cautious. Among my people, there is a belief. If someone saves your life, you owe them a debt. That debt must be repaid, or your spirit walks crooked into the next world. So this is about superstition? This is about honor. Talon Gray stopped, adjusting his grip on Marcus. Your woman stood between me and death when she had everything to lose. That means something. That matters. Even though I'm the one who hurt you? Even though. Talon Gray resumed walking. You were weak. You chose survival over courage. That is human. But your woman, she chose courage when weakness was easier. For that, I will help find her. They found tracks an hour later, small boot prints, uneven and desperate, heading north. Following them was easy at first, but then they reached a stream where the trail vanished into black rushing water. She crossed here, Talon Gray said, studying the opposite bank. Alone, in her condition. His tone suggested this was either very brave or very stupid. Marcus looked at the icy water, felt his wound throbbing with each heartbeat, and knew he'd never make it across in his current state. But Sarah was somewhere on the other side, alone and hunted. Help me across, he said. You will die. The cold, the wound. Your body cannot take more punishment. Then I'll die on the other side. Marcus's voice hardened. But I'm not giving up on her. Talon Gray studied him for a long moment, then nodded. You are stubborn. Like your woman. Perhaps that is why you found each other. The crossing was agony. Water so cold it burned, stealing breath and thought, and everything except the primal need to reach the other side. Marcus went down twice, the current grabbing at him. Both times Talon Gray hauled him up, kept him moving, wouldn't let him surrender to the easier death the river offered. They collapsed on the far bank, Marcus coughing water and shaking so hard his teeth rattled. We need fire, Talon Gray said. Need to warm you before the cold takes what the bullet did not. Within minutes, he had a small fire going, nearly smokeless, hidden in a depression between rocks. Marcus huddled close to the flames, slowly remembering what warmth felt like. Talon Gray disappeared into the forest and returned with handfuls of moss and bark, which he used to create a poultice for Marcus's wound. This will help stop infection, he explained, applying it with surprising gentleness. But you need real medicine. My people have knowledge of healing that white doctors do not. Your people will kill me the moment they see me. Perhaps. Talon Gray finished binding the wound. Or perhaps they will see what I see. A man who made terrible choices, but whose woman chose mercy. A man worth saving because his woman is worth saving. Marcus wanted to argue, but exhaustion was pulling at him like an undertow. The warmth of the fire, the relief from constant motion, the blood loss, all of it conspired to drag him toward unconsciousness. Can't sleep, he muttered. Have to find Sarah. You cannot find anyone if you are dead. Rest. I will keep watch. Talon Gray added wood to the fire. When you wake, we will track your woman. I promise this. Marcus fought it, but his body had reached its limits. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was Talon Gray sitting sentinel against the night, a warrior who by all rights should have killed him, but instead had chosen mercy. When he woke, the sun was high and Talon Gray was crouched at the cave entrance, studying something in the distance. How long was I out? Marcus asked, his voice rough. Half a day. Your body needed rest. Talon Gray gestured toward a skin of water. Drink. We leave soon. Marcus drank, feeling the water ease his parched throat. His shoulder still hurt, but it was a duller pain now, manageable, survivable. Did you find her trail? Yes, and something else. Talon Gray's expression was troubled. 3 men, following the same path. White men, hunters from the trading post. Marcus's blood went cold. How far ahead is she? Maybe 2-3 miles. The hunters, maybe 1 mile behind her. We must move quickly. They moved through terrain that grew progressively more hostile with every step. Marcus pushed himself beyond what his body wanted to give, driven by images of Sarah alone and hunted. Talon Gray set a brutal pace but adjusted it when Marcus stumbled, offering support without comment or judgment. They found the first hunter just before noon, dead in the snow with an arrow in his throat. Talon Gray examined the kill with professional interest. Cheyenne arrow. My people patrol these lands. They found the hunter, killed him. He looked at Marcus. This is good. It means your woman travels through Tzitzis's territory. She may be found by my people before the other hunters catch her. And if your people find her first, what will they do to a pregnant white woman? Talon Gray's silence was answer enough. They pushed harder, following tracks that told a story of increasing desperation. Sarah's footprints showed she was tiring, stumbling more frequently. The remaining hunters had split up, trying to flank her, and somewhere ahead, Talon Gray's people were moving through the forest like ghosts. They found the second hunter an hour later, this one still alive, but barely, pinned to a tree with 2 arrows in his chest. His eyes tracked them with fading awareness. Savages, he gasped. They're everywhere, protecting the woman. Why would they protect a white? He died before finishing the question. Talon Gray pulled his arrows free, checked them for damage. My people have found your woman. They protect her from the hunters. This is good sign. Or they're keeping her alive for themselves, Marcus said, fear making his voice sharp. Perhaps. But alive is alive. We can work with alive. They heard the confrontation before they saw it. Raised voices speaking rapid Cheyenne, a woman's voice responding in English. Marcus's heart lurched. Sarah. She was alive. They emerged into a clearing where Sarah stood surrounded by 6 Cheyenne warriors on horseback. She looked half frozen, exhausted, her dress torn and bloody. But she was standing, chin raised, facing down the warriors with the same stubborn courage she'd shown in Pike's cellar. One warrior, older than the others with a scar running from temple to jaw, was speaking in broken English. You are trespasser, white woman in Tzitzis's land. We should kill you, take scalp back to village. Then do it, Sarah said, her voice shaking but defiant. I'm tired of being threatened. Either kill me or help me, but I'm not running anymore. Marcus stepped into the clearing. Don't touch her. Every weapon swung toward him. Sarah's eyes went wide with shock and relief and terror, all at once. Marcus, you're alive. I thought, I'm harder to kill than I look. He moved toward her despite the rifles pointed at his chest. Sarah, are you hurt? Cold, scared, but alive. She touched her belly. The baby's still moving. That's what matters. The scarred warrior barked something in Cheyenne. Talon Gray emerged from the tree line, responding in the same language. The conversation was rapid, heated, with much gesturing toward Marcus and Sarah. Finally, the scarred warrior switched to English. Talon Gray says you saved his life, that you stood against your own people to protect him. This is true? My wife saved him, Marcus said. I was too much of a coward. She's the brave one. Yet you torture him first. You hurt him when white traders commanded it. Yes, I did. And I'll carry that shame for the rest of my life, but my wife tried to stop it. She risked everything to save him. Whatever you think I deserve, she deserves better. The warrior studied them both with calculating eyes. Marcus could see the debate playing out, justice versus mercy, tribal loyalty versus individual honor. Talon Gray spoke again in Cheyenne, his tone respectful but firm. The scarred warrior's expression darkened, but finally he nodded. Red Cloud will decide, he announced. We take you to village. Both of you. If Chief says kill, we kill. If Chief says spare, he shrugged. Then you live to cause problems later, but your blood is on Talon Gray's hands. They were placed on horses, Marcus behind one warrior, Sarah behind another. As they rode toward the Cheyenne village, Marcus caught Sarah's eye across the distance between them. She looked terrified, but trying to hide it, trying to stay strong. He mouthed the words, "I love you, whatever happens." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I love you too." The Cheyenne village appeared as they crested a ridge, dozens of lodges arranged in a vast circle, smoke rising from cooking fires, children playing despite the cold. It looked almost peaceful until Marcus saw the weapons. Every man wore them, even the old ones. Every woman had a knife within reach. This was a community preparing for war. Their arrival caused an immediate stir. People emerged from lodges, voices rising in surprise and anger as they saw Marcus and Sarah. An elderly woman spat at them. A young boy threw a stone that glanced off Marcus's leg. The warriors escorting them said nothing, just kept moving toward the largest lodge at the village center. Red Cloud emerged before they reached it. A man of perhaps 50 winters, with gray threading through his long hair and eyes that had seen too much. He wore traditional dress adorned with honors earned in battle, and carried himself with the authority of someone who'd never needed to prove his power. He looked at Marcus, then at Sarah, then at Talon Gray. When he spoke, his English was perfect, better than Pike's, better than most settlers Marcus had met. "Explain." Talon Gray dismounted, approached his chief with proper deference. "This man and his woman saved my life when the white traders captured me. The woman stood against her own people, risked her safety, asked for nothing in return. The man, he was weak when tortured me, but he also helped me escape by drawing fire from the other whites. Both deserve consideration." "They deserve nothing. They are white. They carry white spawn. Their people are our enemies." "The man's woman is with child. She is defenseless. He is wounded protecting her. They have no people anymore. The whites hunt them as we hunt deer." Red Cloud circled the horses, studying them like a general assessing enemy fortifications. "What is your name, white man?" "Marcus Boone." "Why did your woman save this warrior?" Marcus looked at Sarah, who nodded for him to speak. "Because watching someone be tortured for information they don't have is wrong. Because she's tired of violence being the answer to everything. Because—" He paused, searching for truth that would resonate. "Because she wanted our child to be born in a world where mercy still means something." "Mercy." Red Cloud tasted the word. "Your people know nothing of mercy. They show us treaties, then break them. They promise peace, then send soldiers. They take our land, kill our buffalo, spread disease, and call it civilization. I know, and I have no defense for that. I'm just one man who failed when it mattered most. My wife is the one who showed courage. If you're going to punish someone, punish me. Let her go." Something shifted in Red Cloud's expression. Not quite respect, but acknowledgement. "You offer yourself in her place?" Without hesitation, Red Cloud looked at Sarah. "And you, white woman, you accept this bargain? Your husband dies, you go free." "No." Sarah's voice was iron despite her exhaustion. "We stay together, or we die together. I'm not leaving him." Red Cloud studied them both for a long moment. "You are brave, or stupid. I have not decided which." He gestured to the scarred warrior. "Take them to the guest lodge. Postguards. No one enters or leaves without my permission. I will call council tomorrow to decide their fate." "And if the council decides death," Marcus asked, "then you die." Red Cloud's tone was almost gentle. "But you will die quickly, with honor. That is more than your people give us." They were taken to a lodge at the village edge, smaller than the others, clearly meant for visitors who might not be entirely welcome. Inside was sparse but functional, a fire pit, sleeping furs, a water skin. The warriors who'd captured them left without a word, posting themselves outside like sentinels. Sarah collapsed onto the furs, every muscle screaming. Marcus sat beside her, pulling her close despite the protest from his wounded shoulder. "We're alive," he said. "For now, that's victory enough." "I thought you were dead." Sarah's voice broke. "I heard the shot and I thought, I know. I'm sorry. I should have been stronger, should have protected you better. You got shot buying me time to escape. You did exactly what needed to be done." She pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his heartbeat. "And somehow you survived and found me." "How?" "Talon Gray. He saved me, patched me up, helped me track you. Marcus touched her belly gently. How's the baby? Still fighting, still kicking. I think they inherited your stubbornness. Or your courage. He kissed her forehead. Sarah, I'm so sorry. For everything. For what I did in that cellar, for getting us into this mess, for... Stop! She put a finger to his lips. You did what you thought you had to do to protect us. I understand that. We're past it now. All that matters is figuring out how to survive tomorrow. They held each other as darkness fell and the temperature dropped. Outside, they could hear the village settling into evening routines, voices calling, children laughing, the mundane sounds of life continuing despite the presence of enemies within the gates. The lodge flap opened. A woman entered, middle-aged, with streaks of white in her braided hair and a face that could have been carved from unforgiving stone. She carried a bowl of something that steamed. Eat, she said in heavily accented English, setting the bowl before them. You need strength for tomorrow. Who are you? Sarah asked. Singing Bird. Red Cloud's sister. I am told to bring you food. She studied them with clinical interest. You are the ones who saved Talon Gray. The ones who bring trouble. We didn't mean to bring trouble, Marcus said. We just wanted to survive. Everyone wants to survive. That does not make you special. But Singing Bird's expression softened slightly as she looked at Sarah's belly. The child comes soon. 2 months, maybe less. Maybe sooner. You have been through much. Body knows when world is too dangerous for birth. She moved toward the door, then paused. Tomorrow, when you speak to council, do not beg. Do not cry, show strength. Our people respect strength above all else. Then she was gone, leaving them with advice that might save them or doom them, depending on how the council chose to interpret strength. They ate the stew, some kind of meat with roots and herbs, sharing the bowl between them. It was the first real food Marcus had eaten since leaving the trading post, and his body responded with desperate gratitude. What do we say tomorrow? Sarah asked when the bowl was empty. The truth, I suppose, that we're sorry for what we did, that we're asking for mercy we probably don't deserve, that we just want our child to have a chance at life. Marcus lay back on the furs, exhaustion pulling at him. And we pray that Red Cloud is a better man than Pike. Sarah curled against him, careful of his wounded shoulder. Outside, wind howled through the canyon, carrying the promise of harder weather to come. Tomorrow they would face judgment from people who had every reason to hate them and no reason to show mercy. But tonight, they were together. They were warm. They were alive. And sometimes, Marcus thought, as sleep finally claimed him, that was enough. Dawn brought voices, low and urgent, speaking in Cheyenne just outside their lodge. Marcus woke with his heart already racing, his wounded shoulder stiff and throbbing. Beside him, Sarah stirred, her hand instinctively going to her belly. Through the hide walls, they could make out shadows moving, gestures sharp with disagreement. Marcus didn't need to understand the language to know they were arguing about their fate. The lodge flap jerked open. Singing Bird entered, carrying a bundle under one arm. She regarded them with an expression that held neither warmth nor hostility, just assessment. Get up. Council meets when sun reaches high point. You both look like you died already. Cannot face judgment looking like corpses. She dropped the bundle at their feet. These are clean clothes. White man's shirt is ruined with blood. You wear our clothes to council or you wear nothing. Choose. Marcus hesitated, then began unbuttoning his blood-stiff shirt. The fabric pulled at the wound, making him hiss with pain. Singing Bird moved to help with practiced efficiency, peeling away the ruined garment and examining Talon Gray's field dressing. He did good work. The wound heals clean. She applied fresh poultice, bound it with strips of hide. You are fortunate. White doctors would have killed you trying to help. Our medicine keeps you alive. Thank you, Marcus said. Do not thank me. I do this because Red Cloud commands it, nothing more. But her hands were gentle as she helped him into a deerskin shirt from the bundle. You're a woman. She needs help also. Sarah had been struggling with her torn dress, trying to maintain modesty. Singing Bird helped her into a soft buckskin dress, adjusting it to fit around her swollen belly. This belonged to my daughter, Singing Bird said quietly. She died 3 winters past. White man's sickness. I'm sorry, Sarah said. Sorry does not bring back the dead. But something in Singing Bird's expression softened as she looked at Sarah's belly. But life continues. New children come to replace those lost. That is the way. When they were dressed, Singing Bird stood back, assessing her work. Now you look less like dying animals. Still look like fools who wander into wolf den, but at least clean fools. What should we expect in the council? Marcus asked. Expect nothing. Hope for mercy. Prepare for death. Singing Bird moved toward the door. And remember, show strength. Weakness is death sentence among our people. The sun climbed with agonizing slowness. Marcus paced the small lodge despite Sarah's urging to rest his shoulder. He was rehearsing words, arguments, anything that might convince a council of people who'd lost everything to his kind. Talon Gray appeared at midday, his face unreadable. Council is ready. It is time. They followed him through the village, Marcus acutely aware of the eyes tracking their movement. Children pointed and whispered. Old men sitting outside lodges watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to open hatred. Sarah walked close beside him, her hand in his, drawing strength from contact. The council lodge was the largest in the village, its interior dim and heavy with smoke from a central fire. Men sat in a circle, 12 of them, ranging from young warriors to ancients whose faces were roadmaps of hard-won years. Red Cloud sat at the circle's head, his presence filling the space like pressure before a storm. They placed Marcus and Sarah in the center. They stood there, hands clasped, and waited. Red Cloud spoke first, his voice carrying easily in the enclosed space. These white people stand accused of being our enemies by birth and association. Their people have broken every treaty, killed our buffalo, poisoned our water, and murdered our children. The question before this council is simple. Does their act of mercy toward Talon Gray outweigh their people's crimes? Or does justice demand their death? The scarred warrior, Wolf Tracks, Marcus had learned, leaned forward immediately. There is no question. They are white. She carries white spawn. Every white we allow to live today becomes a bullet aimed at our children tomorrow. Kill them now, send a message to their people that we will not be merciful while they slaughter us. An older warrior with deep scars across his chest spoke next. Wolf Tracks speaks from pain, not wisdom. Yes, the whites have done terrible things, but if we kill every white who shows us kindness, we prove their stories about us are true. We become the savages they claim we are. Better to be alive savages than dead fools waiting for whites to honor their word, another council member argued. How many times must we extend mercy only to have it thrown back in our faces with bullets? The debate raged, voices rising and falling like wind through canyon walls. Marcus stood silent, watching faces, reading the shifting dynamics. Some men seemed genuinely conflicted. Others had clearly decided their fate before they'd entered. Finally, Red Cloud raised a hand. Silence fell immediately. The white man will speak. He will tell us why we should spare their lives. All eyes turned to Marcus. This was his moment, perhaps his only moment, to save himself and Sarah and their unborn child. He took a breath, felt Sarah's hand squeeze his, and found his voice. I can't defend my people's actions. I won't try. The treaties were broken. The promises were lies. The violence you've suffered is real and terrible, and nothing I say will change that. He paused, meeting as many eyes as he could. But I'm not my people. I am one man who failed when courage mattered most. When your warrior was being tortured, I was too weak to stop it. I participated because I was afraid. That shame is mine to carry forever. Then why should we spare you? Wolf Tracks demanded. You admit your weakness, your complicity. You deserve death. Yes, I probably do. Marcus's voice strengthened, but my wife doesn't. She stood between Talon Gray and death when she had everything to lose. She risked her life and our child's life to save a man she'd never met. Not because she's noble or brave, but because she couldn't watch torture continue and still call herself human. He looked at Red Cloud. You want to kill me? I understand. I can't stop you. But Sarah, she's innocent. The child she carries is innocent. If you have any mercy in your hearts, let them live. Let me pay the price for my weakness, but give them a chance. No. Sarah's voice cut through the lodge. We're not doing this. You don't get to sacrifice yourself to make up for what happened in that cellar. Sarah, I said no. She turned to face the council, her chin raised. You want to kill us? Fine, kill us both. But don't let my husband pretend his death will somehow balance the scales. What happened in that cellar was terrible, yes, but we're past it. We survived it, and we're asking you to let us continue surviving together. Your woman speaks with fire, Red Cloud observed, but words are wind. We need more than speeches to justify mercy. Then let us prove our worth, Marcus said. Let us work. Let us contribute to the village. Let us show you that we can be more than a burden. You are wounded. Your woman carries child. What can you contribute except mouths to feed? I can repair things, build things. I'm good with my hands when they're not holding torture implements. The bitter self-recrimination in Marcus's voice was raw. Sarah can sew, can help with food preparation, can do whatever you need. We're not asking for charity. We're asking for a chance to earn our keep. The council erupted in argument again. Some saw wisdom in the proposal. Others called it foolishness to keep enemies alive simply because they offered to work. The debate continued for what felt like hours. Finally, Red Cloud stood. The council rose with him. We will use them, he announced. There are men coming, white outlaws from the trading post. They seek revenge for our warriors' escape and for this couple's interference. If these raiders find our village, they will attack. We must decide. Do we use these whites as bait to draw them out? Or do we kill them ourselves and deny the raiders their prize? Marcus's blood went cold. They were no longer just prisoners. They were strategic assets to be deployed or discarded. Use them, Wolftrack said immediately. Set them as trap. When raiders come, we ambush, kill all whites, take their weapons and horses. And if the trap fails? The scarred warrior asked. If they see through it and attack in force, we risk women and children for 2 white captives. We risk nothing, another voice argued. We are tzitzistas. These white raiders know nothing of real war. They will stumble like blind buffalo, and we will cut them down. Red Cloud raised his hand again. We will use them as Wolftrack suggests, but not as helpless bait, as willing participants. If they fight alongside us when the raiders come, if they prove their spirits are strong, then perhaps they earn the right to live. Marcus felt Sarah's grip on his hand tighten. Red Cloud was offering them an impossible bargain. Fight alongside the Cheyenne against white raiders, prove themselves in battle, or die either at the council's hands or the raiders' bullets. You want us, me wounded, my wife 7 months pregnant, to fight armed outlaws? Marcus asked. I want you to show us you are more than burdens to be carried or killed. Show us you have warriors' hearts, and the council will reconsider your fate. Red Cloud's expression was implacable. Or refuse, and we kill you now as mercy. Your choice. Marcus looked at Sarah. He saw fear in her eyes, but also that stubborn determination that had made her step between Talon Gray and Pike's knife. We'll do it, he said. Tell us what you need. They spent the afternoon on the practice ground at the village edge. Talon Gray was a patient but demanding teacher, working with Marcus despite his wounded shoulder, showing him how to shoot from different positions, how to compensate for the injury, how to stay alive in close combat when full mobility was impossible. You favor the shoulder too much, Talon Gray said after Marcus missed his 5th shot. The pain is real, but you cannot let it control you. The bullet does not care that you hurt. It will kill you just the same. Easy for you to say. You're not the one who got shot. I have been shot, many times. The first time I cried like child. The second time I learned to shoot through the pain. By the 5th time, pain was just part of being alive. Talon Gray demonstrated a shooting stance that protected Marcus's injured side while maintaining accuracy. The body adapts. You must let it. Marcus tried again, found the position that worked, fired. The shot went true, hitting the target dead center. Better, Talon Gray acknowledged. Do it 100 more times until muscle remembers what mind knows. By the time the sun began its descent, Marcus could hit targets at 50 yards more often than he missed. His shoulder screamed protest, but Talon Gray was right. The body adapted. Pain became background noise, manageable if not ignorable. Sarah spent the day with Singing Bird, learning what she could about defensive positions, about staying alive in battle when mobility was limited. The older woman was surprisingly practical about pregnancy and warfare. When fighting starts, you find cover immediately, Singing Bird instructed. You do not try to be hero. You stay low, stay hidden, shoot only when you have clear target. Your job is survive, protect child. Nothing else matters. What if Marcus needs help? Then you trust him to help himself. He is man, he is warrior now. Whether white or tsitsistas makes no difference. You cannot protect each other if you are both dead. That night, Marcus and Sarah lay together in their lodge, holding each other close as the temperature dropped and the wind howled promises of worse weather. Are we going to die tomorrow? Sarah asked quietly. I don't know, maybe. Marcus stroked her hair. But we'll die together if we do. And we'll die fighting for something better than what Pike represented. I'm scared. Me too. But I'm also... He paused, searching for the word. I'm also grateful. For you. For this chance. For Talon Gray showing me that honor exists even in the hardest places. You're a good man, Marcus Boone. Better than you think you are. I'm a man who tortured someone to save his own skin. That's not good. That's just human. Then maybe being human is enough. Sarah pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his heartbeat. Maybe we don't have to be heroes. Maybe we just have to keep trying to be better than our worst moments. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, storing warmth and courage for whatever tomorrow would bring. The attack came just before dawn. Marcus woke to Talon Gray, shaking him roughly. They are here. 6 riders coming from the east. The trap is set. Move now. They scrambled into position, Marcus at a rocky outcropping that offered good cover and clear sight lines. Sarah hidden in a cave behind him, where she could shoot if necessary, but was protected from direct fire. Warriors moved through the pre-dawn darkness with silent efficiency, taking positions on the ridges above the valley floor. The plan was simple. Let the raiders enter the valley, chasing what appeared to be 2 fleeing whites, decoys from the village, then close the trap from above and behind. Marcus and Sarah were the bait, visible enough to draw attention, positioned to draw fire that would reveal raider locations. It was a perfect killing ground, if everything went according to plan. Red Cloud checked Marcus's rifle one last time. When they come into range, you shoot. Draw their fire. My warriors will do the rest. And if they shoot back, then you shoot better. Red Cloud studied his face. You have courage, white man. Foolish courage, perhaps, but courage nonetheless. That counts for something. Then he melted into the shadows, leaving Marcus alone with his racing thoughts and loaded rifle. The sun broke over the eastern ridge, painting the valley in shades of gold and blood. Marcus could feel his heart hammering, feel sweat despite the cold, feel every nerve screaming at him to run. He stayed. The raiders came into view as the sun cleared the ridge fully. 6 men on horseback, moving with the casual confidence of predators who didn't expect resistance. Marcus recognized the lead rider immediately, one of Pike's lieutenants, a man called Dixon, who'd watched Marcus torture Talon Gray with something like professional interest. There, Dixon shouted, pointing toward the decoys fleeing across the valley floor. The Boones! Just like Pike said, they ran to the savages for protection. Well, let's show them how that works out. The raiders spurred their horses forward, spreading out to cut off escape routes. They were in the valley now, in range of the hidden warriors. Any moment now, Red Cloud would give the signal. But Dixon wasn't stupid. His eyes swept the ridges, taking in the perfect ambush positions, the too convenient exposure of their targets. Understanding dawned on his face. It's a trap, he shouted. Ride! Marcus fired. His shot took Dixon's horse in the chest, sending both rider and mount tumbling. The valley erupted in gunfire. Warriors on the ridges opening up, muzzle flashes bright in the morning sun. Horses screamed, men shouted, blood sprayed onto pristine snow. One raider dropped immediately, an arrow through his throat. Another took a bullet in the shoulder and wheeled his mount, trying to escape back the way they'd come. But the circle behind them was closing, warriors pouring down from the western ridge, cutting off retreat. Marcus reloaded, fired again. Missed. The raiders were fighting back now, shooting at ridge positions, trying to break through the encirclement. A bullet whined past Marcus's head, close enough that he felt the air displacement. He dropped flat, rolled behind better cover, came up shooting. This time, his bullet found flesh, catching a raider in the leg, sending him tumbling from his horse. Behind him, he heard Sarah's rifle crack. Once. Twice. He didn't know if she hit anything, but she was fighting, proving herself just like Red Cloud had demanded. The battle was brief and brutal. The raiders fought with desperate skill, but they were outnumbered and trapped. Within minutes, 4 were dead, 1 was dying, and Dixon, wounded but still mounted, was trying to force his horse through the closing circle of warriors. He came straight toward Marcus's position, his face twisted with rage and pain. He raised his pistol, aiming directly at Marcus's chest. "You caused this, Boone," he snarled. "You and your sanctimonious wife, you die, knowing it's your fault." Time slowed. Marcus saw Dixon's finger tighten on the trigger, saw the hammer begin to fall. Knew he couldn't roll fast enough, couldn't dodge, couldn't do anything but watch his own death arrive. Then Talon Gray was there, throwing himself between them. The bullet meant for Marcus took him high in the chest, spinning him around. He fell hard, blood spreading across the deerskin shirt. "No!" Marcus scrambled toward him, all thought of safety abandoned. He reached Talon Gray as Dixon tried to reload, his hands shaking with blood loss and fury. Marcus raised his rifle, took aim at center mass like Talon Gray had taught him, squeezed the trigger gently, not pulling, letting the weapon do its work. The shot took Dixon in the chest. He looked surprised more than anything else, like a man who'd just discovered the world didn't work the way he'd thought. Then he toppled from his horse, dead before he hit the ground. The valley fell silent except for groans of the dying and the nervous sounds of horses. Marcus knelt beside Talon Gray, pressing his hands against the wound, trying to stem the bleeding. "You idiot!" he gasped. "Why did you do that?" "Because," Talon Gray coughed, blood flecking his lips, "you saved my life in the forest when you could have let me leave you. Now we are even. You stupid, brave, impossible man. Stay with me. You don't get to die after everything you've done." Red Cloud knelt beside them, assessing the wound with experienced eyes. "The bullet is lodged near the lung. We must remove it quickly or he will drown in his own blood." Warriors swarmed around them, checking bodies, collecting weapons, securing horses. The trap had worked perfectly. 6 raiders dead, none escaped to tell Pike what had happened. And Marcus had fought, had killed, had proven he could be more than a burden. Singing Bird appeared with medicine supplies, her expression unreadable as she began working on Talon Gray's wound. She cut away his shirt, probed the entry hole with confident fingers. "The bullet must come out now. Hold him." Marcus and 2 warriors held Talon Gray down as Singing Bird worked. The wounded man bit down on a leather strap, his body rigid with agony as she dug for the bullet. When it finally came free, a flattened piece of lead that had nearly ended him, Talon Gray went limp with relief. Singing Bird packed the wound with herbs, bound it tight. "He will live if infection does not set in." The bullet missed the lung by a finger's width. "He is fortunate." Sarah appeared, breathing hard, her rifle still in her hands. She looked at the bodies scattered across the valley, at the blood staining the snow, at Marcus kneeling beside the man who'd saved his life. "Is it over?" she asked. "For now." Red Cloud helped Marcus to his feet. "You fought well. You killed the one who would have killed you. The council will hear of this." "Does that mean—" "It means you have earned the right to another sunrise. What happens after that? We will see." He looked toward the village, where smoke was rising from morning fires. "Come. Talon Gray needs healing, and you both need rest. We will discuss your future when death is not standing so close." They carried Talon Gray back to the village, Marcus walking beside the travois despite his exhaustion. Around them, warriors celebrated the victory. 6 enemies dead, valuable weapons and horses captured, no Cheyenne lives lost except 1 injury. Children ran out to greet them, and women emerged from lodges to count the spoils. But as Marcus watched the celebration, a darker thought crystallized in his mind. Pike was still out there. The army was taking interest in his operation. Tensions between settlers and Cheyenne were rising. This victory was just one small battle in a war that showed no signs of ending. And he, widower of Sarah, if she didn't survive childbirth, father to an unborn child, white man living among the Cheyenne, was caught squarely in the middle with nowhere else to go. The council reconvened 3 days after the ambush, by which time Talon Gray could sit upright without his face going gray with pain, and Marcus had stopped dreaming of Dixon's surprised expression as his bullet found its mark. The nightmares had been replaced by something worse, a gnawing certainty that killing him had been necessary, that he'd crossed some invisible line and there was no going back. Red Cloud's lodge was packed with warriors, elders, and several women who'd earned the right to speak in council through their own acts of courage. Singing Bird sat among them, her face as unreadable as carved wood. Wolf Tracks was there too, his expression still bitter but tempered now with something that might have been grudging respect. Marcus stood in the center, Sarah beside him. This time they weren't alone. Talon Gray sat near them despite Singing Bird's protests, his chest bound tight and his face pale but determined. "The white man fought," Red Cloud began without preamble. "He killed one of his own people to protect himself and to protect Talon Gray. He did not run. He did not beg. He proved he has warrior's spirit." He paused, letting the words settle. "The question now is, what do we do with a white man who fights like Tsitsis does, but carries white blood and white loyalties?" "We let them stay through winter," Talon Gray said before anyone else could speak, his voice strained but firm. "They cannot travel in their condition. The woman will give birth soon. The mountain passes are already closing. To send them away now is to sentence them and their child to death." "Perhaps that is mercy," Wolftrack said, but his voice lacked its former venom. "Better than letting them birth another white who will grow to take our land." "Or perhaps," the scarred warrior interjected, "we raise that child to understand both worlds, to build bridges where now there are only bullets." "You speak of fantasy," another elder said. "There can be no bridges while settlers steal our land and soldiers hunt our people. These whites, brave though they may be, change nothing about that reality." Marcus found his voice. "You're right. We can't change what's happening between your people and mine. We can't undo the treaties or bring back the dead. But I can tell you this. If you let us stay, if you let our child be born here, I will never forget what you've shown me. That mercy is possible even in the darkest times. That enemies can become allies when they choose courage over hate." "More pretty words," Wolftracks muttered, but without conviction. Singing Bird stood, and the lodge fell silent. "I have listened to much talk. Now I will speak. This white man wears our clothes. He has bled for us. He has killed for us. His woman carries life that will come into this world soon. In my eyes, they have earned the right to winter here. But," she raised a hand as murmurs rose, "they cannot stay forever. When spring comes, when the child is born and strong enough to travel, they must leave. This is not their world. They will never truly belong here." Red Cloud nodded slowly. "Singing Bird speaks with wisdom. The white man and his woman may stay through winter. They will help where they can, learn our ways, prove their worth. When spring comes, we will reconsider. If they still live, if their child is healthy, we will help them reach a settlement where their people can care for them. And if Pike comes looking for them," Wolftracks asked, "if he brings more men, better armed, then we fight, as we have always fought." Red Cloud's voice was iron. "But this time, the white man fights beside us. He has earned that right." The council murmured agreement. Not enthusiastic, but acceptance nonetheless. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest, a tension he'd carried for so long it had become part of him. "Thank you," he said quietly. "We won't forget this." "See that you do not forget what you promised," Red Cloud replied. "You fight for us now. That means when settlers come, even your own people, you stand with Tsitsistas. Can you do that?" The question hung heavy. Could he raise a weapon against people who looked like him, spoke like him, came from the same world he'd left behind? Could he choose this village over his own kind? Marcus thought of Pike, of Dixon, of all the men at the trading post who'd seen them as nothing more than commodities to be used or discarded. He thought of how he'd broken under pressure, how he'd tortured a man to save his own skin and still lost everything. Then he thought of Talon Gray, throwing himself in front of a bullet meant for him. Of Singing Bird, offering gruff care to strangers. Of Red Cloud, offering mercy when vengeance would have been easier. "I can do that," he said. "I will do that." The weeks that followed taught Marcus more about survival than all his years in Missouri combined. Singing Bird became his reluctant teacher, showing him how to tan hides properly, how to preserve meat against winter's hunger, how to craft tools that wouldn't break after a day's use. The work was endless and brutal, leaving Marcus's hands cracked and bleeding, his wounded shoulder a constant reminder of limitations. But he learned, and slowly, grudgingly, the village began to accept his presence. Children were the first to approach, curious about the white man with the scarred shoulder who spoke terrible Cheyenne and laughed when they corrected his pronunciation. They taught him words for things he needed: water, food, cold, danger. He taught them bits of English in return, though Singing Bird scolded him for it. "You teach them the language of our enemies," she said sharply one afternoon. "I teach them to understand the people they'll have to negotiate with," Marcus replied, his hands working on a hide he was stretching. Understanding doesn't mean surrender, it means being prepared. Singing Bird had no answer for that, but Marcus noticed she stopped scolding. Talon Gray healed slowly, his chest stiff and painful but functional. He spent hours with Marcus, teaching him more about tracking, about reading the land and weather, about the intricate politics of tribal life. But mostly they just talked, about his sister who'd believed in peace, about Marcus's life before the trail, about the impossible position they both occupied between two worlds at war. "Do you ever wonder if your sister was right?" Marcus asked one afternoon as they sat outside the village, watching storm clouds build over the mountains. "About peace being possible?" "Every day." Talon Gray flexed his injured chest, wincing. "And every day I see more evidence she was wrong. Your people come in greater numbers each season. They bring disease, bullets, and promises they never keep. How does one make peace with that?" "I don't know. But the alternative is everyone dying until there's no one left to remember why you were fighting. Perhaps that is the only way this ends. One people extinct, the other victorious." He looked at Marcus. "What will you tell your child about their father, about what you did in that cellar?" The question caught Marcus off guard. He'd been trying not to think about it, about how to explain to his son or daughter that their father had participated in torture, had been weak when strength mattered most. "The truth, I suppose. That I failed when courage was needed, that I hurt someone because I was afraid, that I'm trying to be better than my worst moment." He touched his shoulder where the scar was forming. "What else can I say?" "You can say you were human. That is enough." A shout from the village interrupted them. Warriors were mounting horses, grabbing weapons, moving with urgent purpose. Red Cloud emerged from his lodge, his face grim. Riders approaching from the south, many riders. White men. Marcus's blood went cold. "Pike? We will see." Red Cloud gestured to Talon Gray. "You are not healed enough to fight. Stay with the white man and his woman. If this goes badly, get them to the caves in the northern hills. Hide until it is safe." "I should fight beside you," Talon Gray protested. "You should protect what we have agreed to protect. That is your duty now." Red Cloud mounted his horse, then paused. "And if I do not return, tell my sister she was right to give these whites a chance. Tell her some gambles are worth making." He rode out with 30 warriors, leaving the village defended by the old, the young, and the wounded. Marcus stood with Sarah and Talon Gray, watching the dust cloud approach, trying to calculate how fast they could run if this went wrong. Not fast enough. Never fast enough, especially with Sarah's belly growing larger each day. The riders came into view, at least 40 men, well-armed and organized. But as they drew closer, Marcus realized these weren't Pike's outlaws. They wore the blue uniforms of the United States Army, and at their head rode an officer with captain's bars glinting in the afternoon sun. "Army patrol," Talon Gray said quietly, tension radiating from him. "This could be worse than outlaws." Red Cloud met them halfway between the village and the tree line, his warriors spreading out in a defensive line. Marcus couldn't hear the conversation, but he could read the body language. Stiff, formal, fraught with the potential for violence. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Red Cloud returned with 3 riders, the captain and 2 soldiers. His face was carefully neutral. "The army seeks information about the trading post and the outlaws who operated there," he said. "They know White Man is here. They wish to speak with him." Marcus's hands instinctively went to Sarah's shoulders, protective. "What do they want?" "To verify their intelligence, to understand what happened, to—" Red Cloud's jaw tightened. "To offer you safe passage to a settlement if you wish to leave." The words landed like a punch. Safe passage, a way out. Everything he'd been fighting for since the moment Sarah had been widowed. No, since he'd been shot protecting her escape. But when he looked at the captain, a hard-faced man in his 40s with eyes that had seen too much frontier violence, he felt no relief, only suspicion. "I'll speak with them," he said. The captain dismounted, approached with his hands visible and empty. "Mr. Boone, I presume. I'm Captain Morrison, 3rd Cavalry. We've been tracking a gang of outlaws operating out of a trading post north of here. We have reason to believe you can provide valuable information about their activities." "What kind of information?" "Names, numbers, routes, contacts. These men have been robbing supply wagons, murdering settlers, and generally making life hell for anyone trying to cross these mountains. We want to shut them down permanently." Marcus studied his face, looking for the lie, the trap. "Why should I help you?" "Because they shot you. Because they killed other innocent travelers. Because they're scum who prey on decent people trying to build a life out here. Because," he glanced at Sarah's belly, "you'll want a safer world for your child." "My child will be born in 2 months. By then, winter will have these mountains locked tight. Safe doesn't exist out here, Captain, no matter how many outlaws you hang." Morrison's expression hardened. "You're carrying an American child, Mr. Boone. That child deserves to be born among Americans, not savages. Come with us now and we'll see you and your wife safely to Fort Collins. You'll have proper medical care, proper shelter, proper food. We have all that here." "Here?" Morrison's laugh was sharp. "You're a prisoner, whether you admit it or not. These people, they're not your friends. They're hostiles who've been raiding settlements, killing innocent people. The only reason they're keeping you alive is because you're useful." "That's not true," Marcus said, but even as the words left his mouth, he wondered. Was it true? Had Red Cloud kept them alive only because they could fight, could be used? Red Cloud's voice cut through his doubt. "The white man and his woman stay of their own choice. They have fought beside us, bled with us, earned their place here. You cannot take them." "I'm not taking anyone, Tool," Morrison replied, though his tone suggested otherwise. "I'm offering rescue to people in danger. Mr. Boone, be reasonable. You can't stay here. When spring comes, these people will move their camp, and you'll be abandoned in the wilderness with a newborn. Is that really what you want for your family?" Marcus looked at Red Cloud, at Talon Gray, at Singing Bird, who'd emerged from the village to watch the confrontation. He saw the tension in their faces, the calculation. They'd known this moment would come, when he'd have to choose between the world he came from and the world that had saved him. He felt Sarah's hand slip into his, felt her squeeze. When he looked at her, she gave a small nod. "Your choice. I'll follow wherever you lead." "I appreciate your offer, Captain, but we're staying." Morrison's face darkened. "You're making a mistake. These people are at war with the United States. When we come back, and we will come back, there won't be offers of safe passage. There will be bullets and fire. Anyone standing with them becomes the enemy." "Then I guess I'm the enemy." The captain stared at him for a long moment, then shook his head. "Your funeral, Mr. Boone. But when the shooting starts, don't expect mercy just because you're white. The army doesn't distinguish." He mounted his horse, gestured to his men. "We'll give you 1 week to reconsider. After that, we're moving against this village and every other hostile camp in these mountains. Choose wisely." They rode away, leaving dust and implications hanging in the air. The moment they disappeared, Singing Bird grabbed Marcus's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "You are a fool. That was your chance to escape, to give your child a future, and you threw it away for what? For people who will never fully trust you? For a warrior who saved you once but has no obligation to keep doing so?" "I threw it away because I keep my promises," Marcus shot back. "I said I would fight beside you. That means not running the moment things get difficult." "Things have been difficult since the moment you arrived. This is not difficult. This is impossible. The army comes in 1 week. We cannot fight them. We do not have the numbers, the weapons, the supplies. Red Cloud knows this. That is why he is already planning to move the village." Marcus looked at Red Cloud. "Is that true?" The chief's face was stone. "We cannot win against cavalry. Our only option is to pack up, move deeper into the mountains, find somewhere they cannot reach us before winter makes pursuit impossible." "How long will that take?" 3 days to pack. 2 days travel to reach the winter camp. We leave tomorrow at dawn. Sarah and I will slow you down," Marcus said, feeling the weight of her pregnancy. the awkwardness of her movements. She can barely walk a mile without needing rest. Then she will ride. We have horses taken from the raiders. Red Cloud's voice softened almost imperceptibly. You chose to stay. That means we protect you. But you must understand, the life ahead will be harder than anything you have known. Winter in the high mountains is brutal. Food will be scarce. Cold will be deadly. Many will die before spring. But some will survive. Some always survive. That is how Tsitsistas have endured for generations. That night, the village transformed into controlled chaos. Women packed lodges with practiced efficiency, wrapping everything that couldn't be left behind in bundles small enough to be carried or dragged. Men corralled horses, repaired travois, counted weapons and ammunition. Children were everywhere, excited by the disruption, not understanding the danger that drove it. Marcus helped where he could, his wounded shoulder limiting what he could lift, but not preventing him from being useful. He worked alongside warriors who weeks ago would have killed him without hesitation, and found a strange camaraderie and shared labor toward survival. Sarah helped Singing Bird pack medicine supplies, tasks that required care but not physical strength. The two women worked in tense silence for hours before Singing Bird finally spoke. You should have made your husband leave, should have taken the captain's offer. Why do you care? You've made it clear you don't want us here. I do not want you here because I do not want to watch you die, or watch your husband die trying to protect you, or watch your child freeze because you were too proud to accept help from your own people. Singing Bird's hands moved with angry efficiency. You think staying makes you brave? It makes you stupid. Brave is knowing when to retreat. Sarah's response was quiet, but firm. We're tired of retreating. Marcus and I have been running since the moment we left Missouri. Running from poverty, running from Pike, running from every threat that appeared. We're done running. Then you will die standing still, very heroic, very foolish. They worked in tense silence after that, packing supplies that might mean the difference between survival and starvation in the months ahead. Marcus found Sarah after dark as she sat outside their lodge trying to find a position where nothing hurt. The baby had dropped lower in the past week, making every movement an adventure in discomfort. How are you holding up? He asked, settling beside her carefully. I'm 9 months pregnant, packing to flee into the mountains ahead of the United States Army, and I just had a philosophical argument with a Cheyenne woman about the nature of courage. Sarah leaned against him. So, typical Tuesday. Despite everything, Marcus laughed. I'm sorry I got us into this. Sorry I couldn't protect you better. Sorry our child is going to be born in the middle of nowhere with winter closing in. Stop apologizing. We made our choices together. She took his hand, pressed it to her belly, where the baby was kicking. Feel that? That's our child, fighting to get out and meet this crazy world we're bringing them into. If they can be that brave, so can we. You're the brave one. You always have been. No, we're brave together. That's how we survive this. They left at dawn, a long line of horses and travois moving north into country that grew progressively more hostile with every mile. The temperature dropped steadily, and by afternoon snow was falling. Not the gentle flakes of early winter, but the driving, bitter snow that promised worse to come. Marcus rode beside Sarah, ready to catch her if she swayed. Behind them, the village moved like a wounded animal seeking shelter, slow, determined, knowing predators followed. They made camp that night in a canyon that offered some protection from wind, but none from cold. Marcus huddled close to a fire with Sarah, wrapped in furs that Singing Bird had provided, and tried not to think about how much worse it would get before spring. Red Cloud appeared out of the darkness, snow dusting his shoulders. We have scouts watching our back trail. The army has not followed yet, but they will. Morrison is not a man who makes idle threats. How much time do we have? 2 days, maybe 3. Enough to reach the winter camp and prepare defenses. He crouched beside the fire, his face grave in the flickering light. You should know, the winter camp is smaller, more defensible, but it is also more isolated. If something goes wrong, if the baby comes early or complications arise, we will have limited ability to help. We'll manage. You keep saying that. I hope you are right. Red Cloud stood, preparing to make his rounds. Get what rest you can. Tomorrow will be harder. He was right. The second day of travel tested them in ways Marcus hadn't imagined possible. The terrain grew steeper, the path narrower, the cold more vicious. Sarah had to dismount and walk for stretches where the trail was too treacherous for riding pregnant, her legs screaming protest, the baby pressing down so hard she could barely breathe. By the time they reached the winter camp, a hidden valley ringed by cliffs, accessible only through a narrow defile that could be easily defended, both of them were beyond exhausted. Marcus helped Sarah from her horse, and she nearly collapsed. He caught her, supporting her weight despite the protest from his shoulder. "We made it," he said. "We made it," she echoed, looking around at the valley that would be their home until spring. It was beautiful in a harsh way, pine trees heavy with snow, a frozen stream cutting through the center, natural caves in the cliff walls that could shelter people and horses. It was also, undeniably, a trap. If the army found them here, there would be no escape. They'd be cornered, forced to fight or surrender. But for now, they were safe. For now, they'd bought themselves time. The village rebuilt itself with impressive speed. Lodges went up in positions carefully chosen for defense and shelter. Hunters rode out to scout for game. Women began the endless work of making winter camp livable, collecting firewood, setting snares, preparing for the months of hardship ahead. Marcus did what he could, though his body was increasingly betraying him. The shoulder wound had healed, but left him with reduced strength and range of motion. The cold made it ache constantly, a reminder of his limitations. Sarah's condition grew more precarious with each passing day. The baby had dropped so low she could barely walk. Singing Bird examined her with clinical efficiency and declared the birth would come sooner than expected, perhaps within days. "The child knows winter comes," Singing Bird said. "Better to be born now than in the depths of cold. But this also means danger. You must be prepared for difficulties." "What kind of difficulties?" Marcus asked, fear tightening his chest. "The baby is positioned wrong. Feet first, not head. This makes birth harder, more dangerous for both mother and child." Singing Bird's expression was grave. "I have delivered many breech babies. Most survive, but some do not." Marcus felt the world tilt. "What can we do?" "Pray to your spirits. Prepare for the worst. Hope for the best." Singing Bird touched Sarah's belly with surprising gentleness. "And when the time comes, you must be strong. Your woman will need your strength more than ever." 3 days after they'd reached the winter camp, scouts brought news. The army had found their old village site and, finding it abandoned, had burned what remained. But Morrison hadn't pursued them into the mountains. Not yet. Whether that was wisdom or just waiting for spring, no one could say. The temporary reprieve allowed the village to settle into winter routine. Days blurred together, work, cold, exhaustion, brief moments of warmth around fires. Marcus learned to move more slowly, conserve his energy, accept help when offered. He learned Cheyenne words for things he'd never needed back in Missouri. Hunger, endurance, the particular quality of cold that could kill you while you slept. And he learned something else. The community built on shared survival was stronger than any he'd known in his old life. The village protected its own with fierce devotion, and somehow, impossibly, he'd become one of its own. But late at night, when the wind howled through the canyon and Sarah lay restless beside him, Marcus wondered if he'd made the right choice, wondered if their child would survive, wondered if any of them would see spring. He had no answers. Only faith that choosing courage over fear, mercy over revenge, had to mean something, even if he didn't live to see what that something was. The labor began on the coldest night Marcus had ever known, when the wind turned the valley into a howling tunnel of ice, and even the fires seemed to surrender to winter's grip. Sarah woke gasping, her water breaking in a warm rush that soaked through the firs beneath them. "Marcus," she breathed, her hand finding his in the darkness. "It's time." He was on his feet instantly, calling for Singing Bird, his heart hammering with fear and anticipation. This was it. After everything they'd survived, everything they'd endured, their child was coming into this frozen, hostile world. And Marcus had never been more terrified in his life. Singing Bird appeared so quickly, Marcus suspected she'd been waiting, expecting this. Her face was grim as she knelt beside Sarah, pressing expert hands against her swollen belly, feeling the position of the child. "The baby still presents wrong. Feet first." Her tone was matter-of-fact, but Marcus heard the underlying concern. "This will be difficult, very difficult. Can you walk to the birthing cave?" Sarah tried to rise, gasped as a contraction hit. I don't think. Then we carry you. Singing Bird moved to the lodge entrance, called out commands in rapid Cheyenne. Within moments, two women entered with a travois. They lifted Sarah with surprising gentleness, secured her against the wooden frame, and dragged her through the howling night toward one of the cliff caves that had been prepared for exactly this purpose. Marcus followed, his breath coming in white clouds, his hands clenched so tight his nails drew blood. Talon Gray appeared at his side, walking with him through the storm. "Your woman is strong," Talon Gray said. "She will survive this." "You don't know that. Singing Bird said this baby's positioned wrong. She said it's dangerous." "Many things are dangerous. That does not mean they are impossible." Talon Gray gripped his shoulder. "The good one. You must be strong for her now. She will need your courage." The birthing cave was warmer than Marcus expected. Fires had been burning there for hours, heating the stone walls until the space felt almost comfortable. Furs covered the floor, and supplies were arranged within easy reach. Singing Bird had clearly been preparing for this, perhaps for days. Two other women were there, experienced midwives who delivered dozens of children. They worked with quiet efficiency, helping Sarah out of her dress, wrapping her in softer furs, checking her dilation. One of them spoke rapidly in Cheyenne to Singing Bird, her expression troubled. Singing Bird's jaw tightened. "What?" Marcus demanded. "What's wrong?" "The baby comes fast, too fast for breech position. We must try to turn the child, or—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. The next hours dissolved into a hell Marcus had never imagined. Sarah's screams echoed off the cave walls as Singing Bird and the midwives tried to manually turn the baby, their hands pressing and manipulating her belly in ways that made Marcus want to be sick. But he stayed, held Sarah's hand, wiped sweat from her face, whispered encouragement even when he had no faith left to give. "I can't," Sarah gasped between contractions. "Marcus, I can't do this. It hurts too much." "Yes, you can. You're the strongest person I've ever known. You've survived Pike, survived the mountains, survived everything this world has thrown at you. You can survive this." "What if I don't? What if the baby? Then we'll face that together." "But you don't give up. You hear me? You don't give up." Singing Bird worked with grim determination, her hands moving with practiced skill. Finally, after what felt like hours, she nodded. "The baby turns. Head is down now. This is good. Now you must push when your body tells you." The pushing phase was longer than Marcus expected and more brutal than anything he'd witnessed. Sarah bore down with everything she had, her face red with effort, her body shaking with exhaustion. Between contractions, she lay gasping, gathering strength for the next wave. "I can see the head," Singing Bird announced. "The baby comes. Keep pushing." Marcus held Sarah's shoulders, supporting her weight as she pushed. He felt utterly helpless, unable to take her pain, unable to speed the process, unable to do anything except be present. Then suddenly there was a different sound in the cave, a baby's cry, thin, reedy, but unmistakably alive. "A son," Singing Bird announced, holding up the tiny blood-covered infant. "Small, but his lungs are strong. That is good sign." Marcus stared at his son, this impossibly small creature who just fought his way into existence, and felt something crack open in his chest. A flood of love so intense it was almost painful. "Let me—" He reached out with shaking hands. "Can I hold him?" Singing Bird placed the baby on Sarah's chest first. Mother first. Always mother first. Sarah looked down at their son, tears streaming down her face. She touched his tiny fingers that immediately curled around hers. "Hello," she whispered. "Hello, little one. We're your parents. We're sorry about the world you've been born into, but we promise we'll fight like hell to make it better." The baby's cries softened to whimpers as he felt her warmth, heard her voice. Singing Bird worked efficiently, cutting the cord, delivering the afterbirth, checking Sarah for tears that would need stitching. "You did well," she said finally. "Not many white women could birth a breech baby in cave during winter storm. Your son is fortunate in his mother." After Singing Bird had cleaned and swaddled the baby, she placed him in Marcus's arms. He was so light, so fragile. Marcus had held lambs that weighed more. But looking into his son's face, red and wrinkled and perfect, Marcus felt the weight of every decision he'd made, every choice that had led to this moment. "What will you name him?" Talon Gray asked from the cave entrance, where he'd been keeping watch. Marcus looked at Sarah. They'd discussed names during the pregnancy, but nothing had felt right. Now holding his son in this cave among the Cheyenne who'd saved them, the answer was obvious. Elias, he said, after Sarah's father, and Talon, after the warrior who saved us both. Elias Talon Boone, Sarah repeated, testing the name. Yes, that's perfect. Talon Gray's expression softened, the closest Marcus had ever seen him come to being moved. It is a good name, a strong name. May he grow to honor both parts of his heritage. The first days with Elias were a blur of feeding, changing, trying to keep him warm in a winter that showed no mercy. The baby was small, even by newborn standards, and Singing Bird worried constantly about his ability to regulate his temperature, to nurse effectively, to simply survive in conditions that challenged even healthy infants. She taught Sarah to keep him against her skin constantly, using her body heat to keep him warm. She showed Marcus how to help with feeding when Sarah was too exhausted, how to recognize the signs that something was wrong. The next 2 weeks are most dangerous, Singing Bird warned. If he survives them, his chances improve greatly, but you must be vigilant. Watch for fever, for difficulty breathing, for anything unusual. Marcus barely slept, keeping watch over his wife and son with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Every time Elias whimpered, Marcus was there, checking him, making sure he was breathing, that his color was good, that nothing had gone wrong in the moments Marcus had looked away. Sarah tried to get him to rest. You're going to collapse if you keep this up. I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I imagine waking up to find... He couldn't finish the sentence. Then we'll take shifts. I'll watch him while you sleep. You watch him while I sleep. But you have to rest, Marcus. Elias needs you alive and functional. The village adapted to having a newborn in their midst with surprising grace. Women brought food for Sarah, helped with washing, offered advice that ranged from practical to superstitious. Children peered curiously at the tiny white baby who cried in the night. Even wolf tracks, who'd wanted them dead weeks ago, brought a small carved toy, leaving it outside their lodge without a word. But the peace was temporary. 10 days after Elias's birth, scouts brought the news everyone had been dreading. The army was coming. Captain Morrison had waited for a break in the weather and was now pushing into the mountains with a force of at least 60 soldiers, plus artillery pieces that could tear the village apart from a distance. Red Cloud called an emergency council. Marcus attended despite his exhaustion, leaving Elias with Sarah. We cannot fight them, Red Cloud said without preamble. Not here, not in winter, not with women and children to protect. Our only option is to negotiate. Negotiate what? Wolf Tracks demanded. They come to kill us or drive us from our land. There is no middle ground. There is always middle ground if you are willing to look for it. Red Cloud's gaze swept the council. We send an emissary. We offer information about Pike and his outlaws, everything we know about their operations. In exchange, Morrison leaves our winter camp in peace. And if he refuses, then we fight, and we die. But we try peace first. Red Cloud looked at Marcus. The white man will go with our emissary. He has information Morrison wants. He can speak to him in ways we cannot. Marcus felt every eye turn to him. You want me to negotiate with the army? With a 10-day-old baby? I want you to save your son's life, and ours. Red Cloud's voice was gentle, but firm. Morrison will not listen to us. We are the enemy in his eyes. But you are one of his people, a man with a newborn, seeking protection. He cannot refuse to hear you without losing face before his men. And if he takes me prisoner, uses me as leverage against you, then Talon Gray will come for you. Red Cloud glanced at the wounded warrior. He has made his position clear on that matter. Talon Gray nodded, his expression unreadable, but his intent obvious. I'll do it, Marcus said, surprising himself with how quickly the decision came. But I'm not just offering information. I'm proposing something bigger. Red Cloud leaned forward. Explain. Morrison wants the outlaws destroyed. You want the army to leave you alone for winter. What if we give him both? We help him find Pike. Not just information, but actual help. Warriors who know the territory, who can track, who can fight. In exchange, he guarantees this camp's safety until spring and promises to open negotiations about a lasting peace. You ask us to fight alongside the army? Wolftrax's voice was incredulous. To become their dogs? I ask you to find common ground with an enemy you're not going to defeat through violence. Marcus stood, feeling the weight of leadership he'd never asked for. Pike and his men are everyone's problem. They prey on settlers. They stir up tensions between whites and Cheyenne. They make peace impossible by ensuring both sides stay angry and afraid. Remove them, and maybe, just maybe, there's room for something better. The council erupted in argument. Some saw wisdom in his proposal. Others called it betrayal of everything the Tsitsistas stood for. The debate raged for hours, voices rising and falling like wind through the canyon. Finally, Red Cloud raised his hand for silence. We will try the white man's plan. Not because I believe it will bring lasting peace, I am not that foolish, but because it buys us time. Time to survive winter, to let our wounded heal, to prepare for whatever comes next. He looked at Marcus. You will ride out at dawn. Talon Gray and Wolftrax will accompany you. Find Morrison, make your offer, and pray he is wise enough to accept it. That night Marcus held Elias close, studying his son's face in the firelight, so new, so innocent, utterly unaware of the negotiations being conducted on his behalf. Sarah slept beside them, exhausted from days of feeding and caring for their child. I'm scared, Marcus admitted to Talon Gray, who sat nearby keeping watch as he had most nights since Elias's birth. Good. Fear keeps you careful. He fed another stick to the fire. But do not let fear make you weak tomorrow. Morrison is a soldier. He respects strength, not pleading. What if he won't listen? What if he's already decided to destroy the village? Then we make him decide again. You have a gift, Marcus Boone. You survived what should have killed you. You earned the respect of people who should hate you. You fathered a son in the middle of winter in enemy territory. Morrison will see that strength. He will listen. You have more faith in me than I have in myself. That is because I have watched you grow from weak man who tortured prisoners to strong man who fights for his family and his people. Your son is fortunate. He has a father who will fight for a better world, even when the current one wants him dead. They rode out at dawn, Marcus, Talon Gray, and a still suspicious Wolftrax. Elias was wrapped in furs against Marcus's chest, barely visible except for his tiny face. Sarah had wanted to come, but Singing Bird had forbidden it. Too soon after birth. Too dangerous in the cold. The journey to meet Morrison's advancing column took most of the day, following scouts who tracked the army's progress through the snow. Marcus kept Elias pressed against his chest, sharing body heat, praying the cold wouldn't harm his son. They found the cavalry making camp in a valley 2 ridges south of the winter camp. 63 soldiers, Marcus counted, plus artillery pieces and supply wagons that spoke of a force prepared for sustained operations. Captain Morrison stood at the center of organized chaos, directing the camp's construction with military efficiency. He saw them approach and moved to intercept, hand on his sidearm. Mr. Boone, didn't expect to see you again. Brought the baby too, I see. Captain Morrison. Marcus adjusted Elias in his arms, making sure the infant was visible. I've come to make you an offer. I'm not interested in negotiations with hostiles. Then you're a fool. The words came out sharper than Marcus intended, but he was too tired and too scared to soften them. You came here to destroy an outlaw network and secure the territory. I can help you do both without wasting soldiers' lives in a winter siege that might not even succeed. Morrison's eyes narrowed. I'm listening. The Cheyenne will help you find and eliminate Pike's operation. They know these mountains better than anyone. They've tracked his movements, identified his camps, mapped his supply routes. With their help, you can crush the Mountain Brotherhood before they scatter for winter. And in exchange, you leave the winter camp in peace. You guarantee safe passage for the village until spring, and you open negotiations for a lasting treaty that doesn't immediately get broken. Morrison barked a laugh. You want me to make peace with savages who've been raiding settlements? I want you to make peace with people who are defending their land from invaders, Marcus shot back. But if you can't see past that, then think about it tactically. You destroy the winter camp, you become known among your fellow officers for slaughtering women and children, including a white man, his wife, and their newborn American son. You work with them to eliminate the real threat, outlaws who've been killing your settlers, and you become a hero. Which one looks better in your report to command? The calculation played across Morrison's face. Marcus could see him weighing options, considering angles. Morrison was ambitious, that much was obvious. The question was whether his ambition would lead him toward pragmatism or violence. Elias chose that moment to cry. A thin, reedy sound that cut through the cold air. Marcus rocked him gently, trying to soothe him, acutely aware that he was negotiating for his son's life while holding him. Morrison's expression shifted as he looked at the baby. Something human flickered behind the military hardness. "Let me talk to my officers," he said finally. The negotiations lasted 3 days. Morrison and his lieutenants met with Red Cloud and the council in a neutral location, both sides armed but agreeing to temporary truce. The discussions were tense, heated, punctuated by long silences where both parties retreated to consider new proposals. Marcus attended every session with Elias in his arms, offering translations not just of words but of intent. He could read both sides, understood when the Cheyenne were feeling cornered and needed acknowledgement of their grievances, recognized when Morrison needed something he could report as a military victory to justify cooperation. Slowly, impossibly, they hammered out an agreement. The Cheyenne would provide scouts and warriors to help locate Pike's remaining forces. Morrison would provide amnesty for the winter camp and open discussions about more permanent peace arrangements. Both sides would commit to de-escalating tensions and pursuing diplomatic solutions before military ones. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even particularly strong, but it was a start. The combined force moved out on the 4th day, 30 cavalry soldiers and 15 Cheyenne warriors, moving fast and quiet through territory the Cheyenne knew intimately. Marcus stayed behind with Elias, but Talon Gray went with them, his chest healed enough for fighting if it came to that. Marcus spent the next week in agonizing uncertainty, caring for Elias while waiting for news. The baby was gaining weight now, nursing better, his cries growing stronger. Singing Bird pronounced him likely to survive, which was as close to optimism as the woman ever got. When the warriors finally returned, they brought news of total victory. Pike's remaining operation had been found in a hidden canyon 20 miles west. The combined force had surrounded them at dawn, offered surrender, and when the outlaws refused, had wiped them out in a brief, brutal fight. Pike himself was dead, killed by Talon Gray in what witnesses described as a fierce duel. Captain Morrison had lost 3 soldiers. The Cheyenne lost 1 warrior. But the Mountain Brotherhood was destroyed, its survivors scattered or captured, its reign of terror over. Morrison returned to the winter camp with his remaining forces, formally presenting Red Cloud with a signed agreement guaranteeing the village's safety through spring and promising good faith negotiations about more permanent arrangements. He even held Elias briefly, his weathered face softening at the baby's grip on his finger. "You did something remarkable here, Mr. Boone," he said quietly. "Made enemies see common ground. That's harder than any military victory." "Will it last?" Marcus asked. "Or will this all fall apart the moment you leave?" "Honestly, I don't know. There are forces on both sides that want war, that profit from conflict. But you've proven peace is possible if people are willing to work for it. That's something, at least." "It has to be enough," Marcus replied, looking down at his son, "because he deserves a world where it is." Morrison left the next morning, his cavalry column moving south toward Fort Collins. The winter camp watched them go with mixed feelings, relief, suspicion, cautious hope that maybe this time things could be different. Marcus stood with Sarah and Talon Gray as the last soldier disappeared from view. Elias was awake for once, his dark eyes tracking movement with the focus of someone learning the world. "What will you do when spring comes?" Talon Gray asked. "The agreement allows you to leave, to join a wagon train heading west, or return to settlements where your son can grow up with white children." Marcus had been asking himself the same question. He looked around the winter camp, at the people who'd sheltered them, taught them, accepted them when they had nowhere else to go. He thought about Singing Bird's gruff affection, Red Cloud's wisdom, Wolf Trax's grudging respect. He thought about everything he'd learned here, everything he'd become. "I don't know," he admitted. "Part of me wants to leave, to find somewhere safer, easier, where I don't have to explain why my son is named after a Cheyenne warrior, where we're not caught between 2 worlds at war. And the other part? The other part knows there is no safe place. Not really. Violence and hatred exist everywhere. The question isn't where to hide from them, but how to build something better despite them." He shifted Elias in his arms. I think we need to go west. To join a wagon train as planned, but not to hide. To carry forward what we've learned here. To tell people that peace is possible if we're brave enough to reach for it. Talon Gray nodded slowly. That is wise. You cannot stay here forever. You are not Tsitsistas, no matter how hard you fight or how much blood you shed for us. But you can be a bridge between our worlds, a voice for something better than endless war. What about you? Marcus asked. What will you do? I will stay with my people. They need warriors who remember that not all whites are monsters, who can negotiate when negotiation is possible and fight when it is necessary. He paused. Red Cloud speaks of grooming a new generation of leaders, people who can navigate both worlds, who understand that survival sometimes means adaptation. He has asked me to be part of that. You'd be good at it. Perhaps. Or perhaps I will fail spectacularly and end up dead in some forgotten canyon, killed by people from your world or mine who think I am traitor to my blood. His smile was wry, but at least I will have tried. The winter passed slowly, measured in Elias's growth and the camp's careful rationing of supplies. Marcus learned more Cheyenne, helped where he could, and prepared for the journey west that would begin when the passes cleared. Singing Bird taught him how to make pemmican that would last for months, how to treat common illnesses with herbs, how to read weather signs that could save his life. It felt like a long goodbye to a world he'd never quite belonged to, but had come to love anyway. Spring arrived suddenly, as it always did in the mountains, snow melting to reveal brown earth, the stream running fast and cold, animals emerging from winter dens. And with spring came news. A wagon train was gathering at a settlement 3 days' ride west, preparing for the final push to California and Oregon territories. Red Cloud called Marcus to his lodge when the news arrived. It is time, he said simply. Time for you to continue your journey. Time for us to see if Morrison's promises hold when winter no longer forces peace. I'm scared, Marcus admitted. Scared to leave. Scared to face the world alone with a wife and baby. Scared that everything we've built here will fall apart the moment I'm gone. It will not fall apart because of you leaving. It will stand or fall based on whether both sides remember that we are all human, that we all bleed, all love, all want our children to survive. Red Cloud studied Elias, who'd grown from a fragile newborn into a healthy infant with strong lungs and an iron grip. This child, he is proof that new life can come from terrible circumstances, that hope exists even in darkest times. Take him west. Raise him to remember where he was born and what it cost to keep him alive. Let him be a living reminder that bridges can be built if people are willing to try. The village gathered to see them off 3 days later. Warriors. Marcus had fought beside, women who'd taught Sarah survival skills, children who'd made them laugh with their attempts to teach proper Cheyenne pronunciation. Even Wolf Tracks appeared, his expression still skeptical but no longer hostile. You proved me wrong, white man, he said gruffly. I thought you would bring only trouble. Instead, you brought possibility. That is worth something. Singing Bird was last, pressing packages of dried meat and medicine into their hands. You are still foolish, she said, but her eyes were bright with what might have been tears. But you are brave fools. That is best kind. She touched Elias's cheek gently. This one, he has Chitsista's spirit even with white skin. Tell him about us, about how we took you in when you had nowhere else to go. Tell him that people can be better than their worst moments. I will, Marcus promised. Every day. I'll make sure he knows. Talon Gray rode with them to the edge of Cheyenne territory, where the mountains began their descent toward the territories beyond. They stopped at a ridge that overlooked miles of forest and plain, stretching toward a horizon that promised new beginnings or new horrors, depending on luck and choice. This is where we part, he said. Marcus dismounted, Elias secure in a sling against his chest. Sarah joined him, and together they faced the warrior who'd saved them both in different ways. Thank you, Marcus said, for everything, for saving me, for teaching me, for... His voice broke. For showing me that honor and courage aren't about what you look like or where you're from. They're about what you do when it matters. You showed me the same. You and your woman both. Talon Gray touched Elias's hand, and the baby gripped his finger with infant strength. Be safe, Marcus Boone. Build the world you spoke of. And if you cannot build it, at least show people it is possible. What will you tell people about us after we're gone? The truth. That a white man came to our village carrying death's scent and a torturer's shame, that he chose to become better, that his woman stood between enemies and death, choosing mercy over hate, that they fought beside us, bled with us, earned their place among us, that they reminded us that enemies can become allies if both sides are willing to try. He released Elias's grip gently. That is your legacy. Let it be enough. Marcus and Sarah mounted their horses for the final time, Elias secure between them. They looked back once, saw Talon Gray silhouetted against the mountains, already turning back toward the world he'd sworn to protect and improve. Then they rode west. The wagon train was everything they'd feared and hoped for. 30 families seeking new lives, carrying dreams and desperation in equal measure. When Marcus and Sarah arrived with their infant son and explained they were seeking passage west, the wagon master asked few questions. The frontier had a way of making everyone's past simpler, darker, easier not to examine too closely. They fell into the rhythm of trail life, walking beside their assigned wagon, caring for Elias, sharing meals around communal fires. People asked about Sarah's recovery, admired the baby, offered advice and assistance. They didn't ask too many questions about where they'd spent the winter or why they spoke occasional words in Cheyenne. Marcus was grateful for that. The full story was too complicated, too fragile to share with people who wouldn't understand. But he told Elias. Every night as the baby nursed and Sarah rested, Marcus whispered stories about his son's namesakes, about Sarah's father Elias, who'd taught her to shoot, about Talon Gray, who'd shown that honor transcended bloodlines. He told him about Singing Bird's gruff kindness, Red Cloud's wisdom, Wolf Trax's grudging respect. He told him about a village that had taken in enemies and treated them like family. He told him about the world he hoped Elias would help build, where people could cross boundaries without violence, where treaties were honored and promises kept, where children of all colors could play together without learning hate. It was a dream, maybe, a fantasy that would die under the weight of westward expansion and endless conflict. But Marcus had survived too much to give up on dreams. He'd learned that courage meant trying even when success seemed impossible, that mercy mattered even when vengeance was easier, that building bridges was harder than burning them, but ultimately more worthwhile. The wagon train rolled west, carrying Marcus, Sarah, and Elias toward an uncertain future in territories that promised land and opportunity for those brave or desperate enough to claim it. Behind them, the mountains held secrets, a winter camp where people had chosen cooperation over destruction, a warrior who'd sacrifice everything for a better world, a woman who'd given her daughter's clothes to strangers. Ahead lay whatever came next. New struggles, new challenges, new opportunities to either repeat history's mistakes or forge something better. Marcus Boone, widower of his old self, survivor, father, bridge between worlds, held his son close and faced that uncertain future with the strength he'd earned through suffering and choice. He didn't know if he'd succeed in building the world he imagined. Didn't know if Elias would grow up to be the peacemaker he hoped, or just another casualty of frontier violence. But he would try. He would fight for that possibility with everything he had. Because in a world that demanded you choose between courage and surrender, between mercy and hate, between hope and despair, he'd learned that the choice itself mattered as much as the outcome. And that was enough. It had to be enough. Behind him, the mountains disappeared into distance and memory. Ahead, the horizon opened like a promise. And in his arms, a baby named for two men who'd given everything so he could exist, a living symbol of the terrible, beautiful, impossible hope that someday, somehow, things could be better, if people were just brave enough to try. One evening, as the sun set fire to the western sky and the wagon train made camp, an older man approached their fire. He'd been watching them for days, Marcus had noticed, studying them with particular interest. "Name's Fletcher," the man said, settling onto a log nearby. "Used to be a territorial judge before I decided to try my luck in California. Can't help but notice you and your wife carry yourselves different than most folks on this train." Marcus tensed, protective. "How so?" "You move like soldiers, like people who've seen real violence and survived it. And that baby of yours—" Fletcher smiled at Elias, who was awake and alert in Sarah's arms. He's got a look about him, like he was born in interesting circumstances. We've had an eventful year, Marcus said carefully. I'd wager you have? Fletcher pulled out a pipe, began packing it with tobacco. Here's the thing. When we reach California, there's going to be a need for people who can bridge worlds, people who understand both settlers and the native tribes, people who've proven they can find common ground when everyone else is reaching for guns. What are you proposing? I'm proposing that when we reach our destination, you consider working with me. I'm planning to open a trading post, but not like Pike's operation, a real one. Fair prices, honest dealing, a place where whites and Indians can come to trade without fear, a place that proves cooperation is possible. Fletcher lit his pipe. I've watched you with your family, watched how you treat people. You've got something most men on this trail don't. You've learned that the other side is human. That's rare. That's valuable. Marcus looked at Sarah, saw the same hope flickering in her eyes that he felt kindling in his chest. A chance to build something, to prove that the lessons learned in blood and snow could translate into something lasting. We'll think about it, Marcus said. Talk to you more when we reach California. Fletcher nodded, stood to leave. Fair enough. Just know the offer's genuine. World needs more men willing to build bridges instead of burning them. That night, Marcus held Elias while Sarah slept, watching the stars wheel overhead. His son was growing stronger every day, already trying to hold his head up, already showing signs of the fighter he'd been since before birth. You know what I think? Marcus whispered to his son. I think maybe your grandfather was right. Maybe the world is big enough for all of us if we're willing to make room. Maybe peace is possible if enough people choose courage over fear. Elias made a small sound, not quite a coo, but close. Yeah, Marcus smiled. I don't know if we'll succeed either, but we're going to try, because that's what your mother taught me. That trying matters. That choosing to be better than your worst moment is what makes you human. The journey west continued. There would be hardships ahead. Marcus knew that. There would be setbacks and struggles and moments when the dream of peace seemed impossibly distant. But he'd survived torture and bullets and winter in the mountains with a newborn. He'd earned the respect of people who should have killed him. He'd learned that bridges could be built even between the most unlikely people. And he'd carry those lessons forward. For Elias. For Sarah. For Talon Gray and Singing Bird and Red Cloud and all the people who'd chosen to see him as more than his worst moments. The frontier stretched before them, vast and dangerous and full of terrible promise. But Marcus Boone rode toward it with his family beside him and hope in his heart. It would have to be enough. It was enough.